Molweni nonke.
Good morning, Honorable Christian, Honorable members, and DM.
Morning, Honorable.
Morning, Chairperson, and morning, honorable members. May Christie, I see you there.
Morning, Honorable Christie, and morning, Honorable Chair, and Deputy Minister, and all members of the
Good morning, honorable members. Good morning to the Deputy Minister, Honorable Seiso Muhai, and good morning to the DG, the acting DG, Advocate Makobe, all colleagues from the DPME, and everyone else in this platform. Honorable members, it's 9 o'clock. Can we start the meeting? There is the agenda before us, honorable members, hoping that we'll conclude this meeting even before 1 o'clock. And let me welcome all of you, honorable members, and also Deputy Minister and the team of the Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation led by the advocate. And also today, honorable members, we will listen to the presentation by the Department on Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, and obvious the annual report 2024-2025 and the financial statements of the dissolved public enterprise. And you all know what happened, and also the announcement by the president, and also you all know that all these SOEs that we'll be talking about today in this report, they are all with the line ministries. So, honorable members, with those few words, you are all welcome to this meeting. And I will then take apologies and the adoption of the agenda. And before us, I think we've got few apologies. One, the apologies of the MK party members, Honorable Mani, Honorable Gama, and their alternates, Honorable Lucky Montana and Honorable Litchfield, I think Chabalala. And also there's an apology of the Minister on Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Honorable Marupin Ramhupa. Those are the apologies, honorable members. I will then take hands, one to adopt the agenda and also the apologies. I'm taking hands, honorable members.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Okay, the agenda is adopted by Honorable Nkumbana. I see the hand of Honorable Buthelezi, and welcome back.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to members and to all on in the meeting. I will move to second the move for adoption.
Thank you very much, Honorable Buthelezi. And now, honorable members, we are handing over to the Deputy Minister, Honorable Seiso Muhai, to do his remarks, and immediately the presenter.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Ngweba, and good morning to all members of the committee. And we are here today to table or to present rather the annual report and the annual financial statements of the abolished Department of Public Enterprises. And this is the last annual report for the DPE, which was officially closed on the 31st of March. And I want to echo your words, Honorable Chairperson of the committee, that there's an apology from the Minister who's on official leave to attend to matters that the Minister that are pressing. So I'm with the team here, Advocate Makobe and the rest of other senior managers, and I believe that the Advocate will indicate we did impress that other those officials who has worked here and are still within government could find time to be with us today, so that at least we make a significantly we deal with all the issues that the committee members could raise. I want to indicate, Chairperson, I'm in a meeting and I'll be in a meeting, but there's something that I will have to be on the road at a certain time. But I think I'll indicate if there's any challenges that relates to that. But we've got a full complement of a team here to deal with all the issues. And let me take this opportunity to pay tribute to the former ministers and deputy ministers, as well as dedicated officials who made vital contribution towards the success of the Department of Public Enterprises. The Department of Public Enterprises implemented several landmark reforms that shaped the future of state-owned companies. This milestone underscores the DPE leadership in restructuring and reform of SOEs. A proclamation that was issued on the 27th August 2024 immediately transferred the state-owned companies reporting to DPE to the respective policy departments. In addition, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation was administratively responsible for the DPE functions, which included the closing down of DPE. So the DPE is the first department since the dawn of democracy to be closed down, and the DPE will present today on the lessons learned from that process. It is important to contextualize the performance of DPE in the last 2 quarters of the financial year. The proclamation presented challenges on the delivery of key outputs outlined in 2024-25 annual performance plan, and the DPE was expected to implement the APP in full, while the SOCs were reporting to the policy departments for the remainder of 7 months of the financial year. As a result, there has also been impact on the targets that were to be achieved, and that will be indicated in terms of percentages. To conclude, Chairperson, it is important to indicate that the Department of Public Enterprises, as we know it, then works spanning 3 decades, laid the foundation for a better coordinated system of governance and reform as SOC. Arguably, there was a period of progress in the SOEs, and we know the most unfortunate moment in our short history of democracy, the era of the state capture and the related problems that impacted on the capacity and functioning of the state-owned companies. The work of DPE will continue to inform the reform of SOEC under Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. The point we're making is that a lot of work was done, research, more work by policy departments in government to look into how state-owned enterprises could be reformed. And members know at the current moment, there's a discussion internally on how best we can provide for a vehicle in a manner that will provide the better coordination of the work of the state-owned companies. Thank you very much, Chairperson, for the opportunity, and thank you, honorable members, for the opportunity to present the reports. Thanks. I think it's the time I'll request the Advocate Makobe to take us through the detailed presentation as prepared, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, for the opening remarks, as well as the Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members present here this morning. As the Deputy Minister has indicated, we are presenting the annual report of DPE, and the DPE has been abolished, and the SOEs that were reporting to DPE were transferred to policy departments. I'm just going to make opening remarks, and then Edwin will go into the presentation. So the staff of DPE were then transferred to the policy departments, and they are here this morning. The executives, the former DDGs of DPE, have been invited and are here today, this morning. And the department was closed, of course, on the understanding the new shareholder management model will be adopted for state-owned enterprises through the National State Enterprises Bill that is before Parliament. And as this is the last reporting for the Department of Public Enterprises, we have taken stock of the successes of the department, and those are displayed, as you will see in the presentation. The performance of the department is at 45%, as the SOEs have been moved to policy departments, and the department was not able to be able to achieve some of those targets, as the department at that stage had become fundus official. But however, honorable members, it's also important to underscore the fact that the audit was a very peculiar one. I'm saying it was a peculiar one because the staff had already moved to the policy departments when that audit was conducted, and the assets were also on the process of being moved. And there were qualifications based on two matters, as the AG has briefed this committee, which relates to major and minor assets. And the issue of the major asset was that there was no reconciliation between the amount that was in the annual financial statement and the asset register. So it was an issue of just reconciling those two. On the issues of the minor assets, the assets were already transferred to the policy department and they were signed off by them. And a sample was done by AG, but some of those minor assets could not be found in the policy departments. It was minor assets like remote control and the like. But I must indicate that the assets that were in DPE that were transferred to the policy departments are accounted for. And we've got assets register that indicates the assets that were in DPE and the assets that have been transferred to the policy departments and signed off by them, accepting those assets. So we've got a record of the assets. The documents of the departments have been secured. Some of them have been transferred to the policy departments, and some of them have been stored in an off-site storage. So documentation has been secured, and there is a clear accountability in terms of where the assets are. And this process, honorable member, has been a learning point for DPE. As the Deputy Minister has indicated, it's the first department to be closed, and it has given us lessons on the process that we need to follow on a closure of a department, which can be used as a blueprint for future closure of the departments. I will then ask Edwin then to go into the detailed presentation of the abolished DPE. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DJ. Good morning, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Chair, Honorable members, former colleagues of DPE, and everyone present in the meeting. So I'll present the annual report and how we performed. These are the areas that will be looked at. DPE overview, the challenges on DPE operations, the lessons learned, non-achievement of targets, performance information, financial performance, and the irregular expenditure. I'll start with overview of DPE. It was instrumental in driving oversight of state-owned entities, state-owned companies. Some of the successes, as has been mentioned by the DM and the DG, was the restructuring of Telkom, the unbundling of Transnet, which led to SAA and S-Express becoming standalone SOCs, the current restructuring of Eskom, which started in August 2000, and the establishment of Broadband Infraco, the transformation of the forestry industry through SAFCO, the successful restructuring of SAA through the business rescue. If you remember the business rescue of SAA that started from 2019 and has been successful, and now SAA is operating successfully. The development of best practice for governance through the protocol on corporate governance in the public sector, and the reform of state-owned entities. The dissolution of the department is not an end of a legacy, but the beginning of a new era where the functions have been continued from the line departments. The performance was, as has been highlighted, affected by the way the transfer was handled, in that the oversight function was transferred to the receiving departments. However, the resources, the human resources, as well as the assets, were still with the department until 31st of March 2025. And the DPME was then responsible for the administrative oversight until the closure of the department at the end of the financial year. So the lessons learned and perhaps the challenges that were experienced was that the move of SOCs to policy department was immediately after the proclamation, and the staff then followed later on. And then some of the functions were done by the two departments, where the receiving department was receiving some of the reports, whereas the department was not receiving all the reports that were required to do the oversight function. And that affected the performance of the departments. As a result, some of the targets were achieved, and as was mentioned, that was only 45%, but the majority of the targets were not achieved. So the lessons learned was that a holistic approach on abolishing departments should be considered extensively. The department was the first department to be abolished, and there were no reference point or blueprint on how dissolution of a department should be undertaken. So I'll just go now to the non-achievements, just going specifically to the targets that were not achieved. The first one was the report on stakeholder intervention to prevent SOE critical infrastructure vandalism. This target related to Transnet and ESCOM, where there's been a lot of vandalism and cable theft affecting the operation of the department. The operations of the SOC. As a result, the report that should have been prepared to see how the progress of the vandalism and cable theft challenges being addressed was being done, could not be done, because the SOC on which the basis of the report was supposed to be made had moved to the receiving department. The second one is the pilot report on board performance index. This was a report that was supposed to be prepared based on the two SOCs that were within the department. Again, this could not be achieved. Similarly, the quarterly reports that should have been done every quarter on the SOCs could not be done, as some of the SOCs were not even sending their reports to the department. They were sending them to the receiving departments. However, in some cases, some of the departments would approach the DPE to say, could you assist us with preparing the quarterly report or reviewing the performance of the SOC? We would then provide that support, and then the final report will be signed off by the receiving department. However, in terms of achievement, this was not recorded as an achievement within the department, but was recorded as an achievement to the receiving department. Similarly, the other reports could not be done. For example, the Alexco, where a study had been done on the role of Alexco, and this could not be assessed on how the progress was proceeding. Because Alexco was no longer with the department. Similarly, with the shareholder compacts, we, as a department, we had started the negotiation of the shareholder compacts for the various SOCs. However, we could not finalize those shareholder compacts because the new receiving departments wanted to set up their own targets together with the SOCs. So as a result, DPE could not conclude on the shareholder compact. The same thing with the Just Energy Transition Framework. We could not assess the progress because ESCOM had moved to the receiving department. These reports are just more details on what I've discussed previously, so I'll just skip them and go to the financial performance. When we come to the financial performance, expenditure was not as had been planned. We had been awarded or appropriated 296 million rands, but only spent 206 million rands, which was an expenditure of 69%. So this slide shows per program, the administration program, the SOC governance program, and the business enhancement program. The administration program achieved 71%, the SOC governance 67%, and the business enhancement 68%. The next slide just shows the same expenditure but broken down in terms of economic classification. So you can see that the expenditure on employees was a little bit higher at 76%, whereas the goods and services was at 60%. That was because most of the projects that should have been done during the year could not be done because the basis on which those assessment or reports should have been done had moved to the receiving departments. And when it comes to the compensation for employees at 76%, that also was not as expected because the department had tried on 2 occasions to fill in the posts, but we couldn't get approval to fill in those posts from the Department of Public Service and Administration because of the dissolution of the department. So therefore, there were a lot of vacancies, which led to an expenditure of only 76%. This one just shows the expenditure per program. So this was expenditure for program 1 with compensation for employees at 70%, goods and services at 75%, and the average of 71%. In program 2, compensation for employees was at 35%, but you can see on the goods and services, because no projects were being completed, so it was only a spending of 41% with an average of 66.7%. And then program 3, compensation for employees was at 82%, goods and services was at a very low 30%, and the average was 67.5%. And this is just an analysis on how the expenditure was incurred, and that has been explained. Now, when we look at this slide, we're looking at irregular expenditure, which is a cumulative irregular expenditure for the department. So it's 39%, 39 million rands, of which 32 million rands related to expenditure on ZAM projects. This project comes from way back where the department was trying to address this one. There were challenges in completing the process of addressing this irregular expenditure. One of the things that the department had done was to take the matter to court to try and recover the amounts that were paid to ZAM projects. However, by the time the closure of the department, the process had not been completed, as we were awaiting the court to put the matter on an opposed motion court row. Then the other 2 expenditure for 4.3 million and 2.3 million related to expenditure which was identified as irregular. However, the department approached National Treasury to see whether National Treasury was also of the same view as the Auditor General. National Treasury expressed a view, however, it was not substantiated. So the department then wrote back to National Treasury in March 2025 for National Treasury to substantiate their view, and which was also important for the department to use when they're carrying out the investigation on the matter. So up to this point, we had not received any response. So those are the irregular expenditure, and that's all. in terms of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edwin, with the presentation. And honorable members, I know that there was also a thick document, a 144 pages document that was also emailed and posted in our portfolio committee group. And obviously, the department have presented the summarized document before this portfolio committee. And I'm taking hands, honorable members. That's the presentation. And I'm taking hands, honorable members. I'm not sure. Okay, I see there's a hand of Honorable Christie and followed by Honorable Bergman. Okay, there are only two hands. Honorable Christie?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you for the presentation, and I'm sure it must have been very difficult being the first department to be dissolved and having no blueprint to follow. I'm very much interested in the governance of state-owned companies because, you know, that's where state capture happened, really. It was the directors who then hollowed out our state-owned enterprises and brought them to their knees. So that some of them are in hundreds of millions of rands of debt, or billions actually, rands of debt. And our presenter mentioned a document from 2002, a sort of a blueprint for governance of state-owned companies. If we had this guideline and this policy document, how did it go so wrong? How did we allow our state-owned companies to be utterly captured and stolen from and reduced to a shell of what they used to be? Was this policy document not followed? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Christie. Honorable Bergman.
Sorry, Chair, I was trying to find my mute button. Chair, thanks for the presentation. And I do think that, as I echo my colleague in terms of the handover, that, you know, everyone finds in hindsight that they could have done better. And it's easier to criticize in hindsight. But I think that in terms of handover, I still don't believe that we've had a credible handover. That I think that we still have a lot to do in terms of assets in our possession, in terms of what DPE has brought in terms of core assets to DPME. That in terms of an asset register and what we do with those assets and what gets achieved with those assets. I think, you know, I asked the Minister that question, and I think we need to still understand what the core assets, how we're going to sweat those assets and make them work in DPME. And when we talk about assets, unfortunately, sometimes we also talk about people and resources. But also in terms of handover, there's a lot of what what was part of planning public enterprises in terms of what was handed over, you know, to the different ministries. You know, that's we talk about wasteful expenditure, we talk about projects, and a lot of the projects you could see the underspending, and we could see wasteful expenditure. In terms of handover, what was the responsibility of public enterprises before the handover? And how do we ensure that once we've handed over the nurturing process, that there's that, you know, that we've held on long enough to ensure that responsibility, that spending will still be had, that we don't, you know, there's that continuity and sustainability of the project, that once it's handed over to the ministry, the project is still completed to 100%. And I think that's where planning, monitoring, and evaluation can still play a role, even though that enterprise was handed over to that ministry. And I think, you know, this, in the huge report that you speak about, it's easy on the slides to go through the summary, but there's a lot to question in terms of, you know, the underspending, and it has been explained a lot, but it's not clear as to how we as an oversight committee are going to oversight a lot of these projects. You'll never, especially with the amount of times that our meetings get cancelled, we will never be able to oversight a lot of this underspending, a lot of these projects that have been proposed, to go and see just exactly where these projects lie in terms of where they're currently being spent, where they are in the process, and how we can assist to get them implemented to the point where we can actually ensure that they are nearly, they're nearly completed, or that they finally do get completed with the assistance now under the new department of DPME. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bergman, Honorable Nkumbanga, and followed by Honorable Apiri.
Well, thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to yourself and all my fellow honorable members and the Deputy Minister and team from TPME. Chair, mine is quite short. First, I want to welcome the presentation and the efforts that have been taken to strengthen the department and its functioning. But I just wanted to highlight I think, two things. In terms of the consequence management transition periods, the AG highlighted delays in investigating irregular expenditure. So I just wanted to check could the department clarify what practical constraints or any factors that contributed to this, and what measures are being put in place to ensure that even post the disestablishment of the department, consequence management processes continue and outstanding matters are properly finalized. I just wanted to check that first. And then secondly, the engagements with the line departments, after the August 2024 proclamation, what engagements took place between DPE and respective line departments, and how have departments responded in terms of absorbing functions and ensuring continuity and strengthening SOE oversight? I think this will also help us as a committee to assess progress and, offer support where it's duly needed. I just wanted to check those two things, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Chairperson, and greetings to the Deputy Minister and honourable members on the platform. Chair, just a short question. I just want to know that because the Department of Public Enterprise received a qualified opinion on its financial statements on movable and tangible capital assets and minor assets due to failure to provide adequate supporting schedules, what is the total value of the assets, and what steps have been taken to address the findings of the AG to ensure accountability and prevent any loss of assets? I think that was just my one question, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, honourable members, and with your questions and obvious comments from the colleagues from DPME, and we've been told by the advocate that also the colleagues from the dissolved department and obvious that have been then a part of the line ministries are here. And I know that obvious some of these questions, honourable members, emanates from the AG's report, which is the findings, the key findings from the AG's report in terms of the dissolved department, and obvious what have been also identified as reds in terms of the performance planning and the reporting and on service delivery issues by these SOEs. But I will then immediately then hand over back to yourselves, Honorable Advocate Makope, and your team, and respond to some of these issues and concerns that have been raised. I'm not so saying, Chair.
It's Inkosi Buthelezi, Chair.
Okay. Honorable Buthelezi.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the Deputy Minister and the team, and good morning to the members of the committee. Chair, I'm just a bit concerned when you look at the irregular expenditure, if this is a cleanup of this DPE. That's a slide where there's irregular expenditure. There's category of regular expenditure relating to the prior year and the one relating to the current year. I just think it will be very important to get a feeling of an understanding of now. If you look at the last sentence under the comments, to say that National Treasury has not been able to substantiate the basis of their view since March. I mean, I don't know what is the hope that this will ever be, or when it can be substantiated. Awaiting reports. This is 8 months later, because also then just linked to that question as well, to that question relating to those two areas, which amounts to about, it's in the tune of about 7 million rand plus minus. And then when will the final cleanup? Can we put a stake in the ground of the final cleanup or all the things that are still hanging around, which have not yet been finalized? That will be my question, my only question, Chair. I'm just worried about those two because it's 8 months later now and it's still outstanding. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Tellers. Then handing over to Advocate Makope and the team. And obvious, I think also the Minister will come after everything have been responded to. Honorable Makope, Advocate.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members. Thank you so much for the questions, which are quite helpful in terms of questioning us in terms of the process that was followed. Honorable Christie, you're quite right. That's what the State Capture Commission report says, that state capture permeated through the board appointment processes, to the SOEs. But it's important to indicate that that report recommends that we have a framework for the appointment of boards. And one of the shortcomings was that the process that you're talking about was in a framework which is not legally binding. And hence, if you look at the National State Enterprises Bill, one of the most important innovations in that bill is to ensure that we've got a transparent process for the appointment of boards, and so that it is legally binding in legislation. And once it's in legislation, you've got no choice but to actually apply it. But if it is a framework, well, it's a framework, it's not legally binding, it's just a guideline. So if we have had a specific legislation for SOEs on board appointments, I think we could be maybe talking a different story, because there could have been consequences for not following that process. But if it's not if it's just a framework, as we have in the current process, it's going to give us difficulties in terms of enforcement. We're actually even now taking into cognizance the King 5 report, which has been recently published, and we are now updating the framework to make sure that it is in line with that, but also on the lessons that we have learned in terms of the oversight of the SOEs, to say, even if the bill has not progressed yet, but let's have an updated framework for the appointment of boards, because this is quite very important reforms of SOEs. Honorable Bergman, on the issue of the asset register, the asset register is there. We've got an asset register, And I think because of the peculiarity of this audit and the time at which the AG had to finalize the audit, there was no time to reconcile the two, but that asset register is there. We've actually subsequently shared it with the AG so that we account for every asset that is there. And I agree with you that it is important that we account for all the assets of DPE, where they are, where they've gone to. And I'm happy that we've got what we call Section 42 certificates, where even the sector departments have signed the assets that were coming from DPE to the policy departments, and some of them, of course, have come to DPME. Of course, I agree, Honorable Bergman, that as DPME, we can then follow on and ensure that some of those projects that were at DPE are followed through in the policy department. Honorable Kumpantra, on the issue of the investigations, we are waiting for the National Treasury. Because as Edwin said, there's a difference of opinion in terms of how we deal with that. And once we agree with the National Treasury, the investigations will continue, because the proclamation gives the Minister of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluations the powers to proceed on the issues of the PFMA. So even if colleagues have moved to the policy departments, we will still do the investigation and consequences management will be implemented. So it's not like anyone will just go scot-free. So once we have, agreed with Treasury on how we deal with it, we will then appoint someone to investigate and then go through the processes themselves. In terms of the records and officials that have been transferred to the land departments, some of them are here. They are continuing with the work in those particular departments. And I think the beauty of it was that those who were working on ESCOM then went to the Department of Electricity and Energy, those dealing with defense issues, they went to the Department of Defense. Those who were dealing with transport issues, they've gone to the Department of Transport. So there was continuity, because those colleagues that were dealing with those particular issues have gone to different departments. Some of us who were dealing with the governance of SOEs have gone to the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. That ensured that there's indeed continuity. So on the issues of Honorable Piri and Ngozi as well, I'll then hand over to Edwin and other colleagues to deal with those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Acting DG. Yes, on the question of assets, I think Honorable Piri wanted to know the value of those assets. The value of the capital assets was 38 million. That's not the difference between what was in the asset register and what was in the financial records. That was just the total number of capital assets. And the AG said that because they couldn't confirm that what was in the asset register was also what was in the financial assets, therefore they then qualified the department's financial statements to say that the amount of 38 million could not be confirmed, and 38 million was the total assets that was within the department. And then when it comes to the minor assets, the value was 5 million. So the value of 5 million, the AG said that they could not confirm the value of 5 million that was reflected in the financial statement. I think I've answered everything. I'm not sure if there's anything else.
It's fine. And I think I just want colleagues from the policy departments just to give the portfolio committee an assurance that the work is continuing, because honorable members have raised the point that is the work continuing, are the projects continuing from the other departments. And as you are here, colleagues, can you just give the assurance to the committee that that is being done?
Oh, sorry, Chair. Sorry to come in. I think that the Deputy Minister had actually specifically asked that my question be answered, but I realize we are moving on before it's answered. Thank you, Chair. This is Buthelezi.
I think it was issue of the cleaning up of the outstanding matters. As I indicated in Ngozi Buthelezi, the Minister of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation has been given the responsibility in terms of the proclamation on matters relating to the PFMA. and the Public Service Act. So those matters like the issues of the irregular expenditure, which is one of the issues that needs to be cleaned up, will still proceed from the DPME. The litigation there with the ZEM projects on that is before the courts, we have substituted DPE to DPME. So those cleanup issues will be within the DPME, and we are doing that from that perspective. So there's not going to be any matter that will be left lying down. Even once we get landing with National Treasury on those issues of the irregular expenditure, especially those two, we'll then do the investigations from DPME. And if there is going to be any disciplinary processes from the colleagues that they've moved to the policy departments, that will be done. So the issue of the cleaning up of outstanding matters is going to continue. And also to ensure that the asset register is reconciled. The colleagues, even though they've moved to the policy departments, are assisting us in that so that we are accountable in terms of all the assets that were in DP. Thank you.
Are you all done, Honorable Makobe? Dr.
Is there anyone who wants to say anything from the policy departments? In the absence of any, yes. Then, because I wanted at least one or two of them, Donald or Weekend, as well as Lebohan Dwambe, before we hand it back to the chair. I'd like you to just give us the assurance that the work is continuing.
Okay, now that you have responded to questions from members, anything from yourself, Deputy Minister? Honorable say so.
Well, thanks, Chair. I think, Chair, it's quite fair that this provides very important lesson that we need to manage transition from the changes that takes place in a much more tighter fashion. I believe that to invest more time to detail the plan to avoid some of the issues that honorable members say could be much more better in the it's one of the important lessons that we must take from this process, because it entirely means reviewing also of the performance plans and so forth. So we could have adequately, I think, managed it much more tighter. But I think that's fair that there are areas which remains areas of concern that members pointed to that we need to deal with, or they should never recur. I think that's an important part that we should do. But I'm happy with the comments made by the department chair. Thanks.
No, thank you very much to the department and also yourself, DM. And I think as you then gonna leave this meeting, I think it's important that you take note of some of the issues that have been raised by the honorable members in terms of the transition and the oversight of these SOEs. And obvious now, we are talking about the department that is ceasing operations and with responsibilities being transferred to all other departments, but it remains part of your responsibility to make sure that the transition and the oversight of these SOEs from different departments is still your responsibility, and you will always in our meetings with yourselves ask many of these questions, because we want to see these SOEs, doing better, and obvious, ensuring that there is effective governance, because some of the members have raised some of the issues, including the state capture reports and everything else. But also, I think you must also take note of the challenges and the concerns that have been raised in terms of irregular expenditure and governance lapses and the financial irregularities within these SOEs, even if they remain with the line ministries. But obvious, also important as a last point, the accountability, and how do we then, as this as planning, monitoring, and evaluation, make sure that while we have these Atlantica boards and executive boards in these SOEs, and we remain making sure that they remain account. To yourselves as well, and also in terms of their performance, because importantly is their performance of these executive boards in different SOEs. So I think, while obvious, also Honorable Advocate Makope spoke about the policy frameworks that Honorable Christie asked, and obvious extent to the bill that is before this portfolio committee, and I know it's a discussion for another day, but how do we then make sure that this SOEs performs as expected, and obvious report and account in terms of their financial statements? I think that's the essence of the questions from honorable members, and of which we will always ask those questions in the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, because holistically their responsibilities to oversee all these departments and oversee all these SOEs. And I think, honorable members, because I don't see hands or follow-ups. Okay, I see there's a hand of Honorable Christie, or is it a legacy hand on an old?
Yes. May I quickly respond to Advocate Makobe's comment?
Yes, Honorable Christie.
Thank you, Advocate Makobe. You really have helped me understand the weakness in the system, that the 2002 framework for governance of SOCs is just that. It's just a framework. And the fact that it wasn't legislated is one of the reasons, for the vulnerabilities of our SOCs. I just wanted to comment on the bill, the National State Enterprises Bill. It is a start. However, it's not nearly detailed enough in legislating the appointment of directors or members of boards of SOCs, because it only covers the members of the boards of the estate of the one board, the centralized SAMSOC. It doesn't cover the boards of of each individual state-owned company, such as like Eskom, Transnet, etc. And of course, a lot of us have huge concerns about a centralized holding company. So it's just not detailed enough. And certainly you have confirmed to me that legislation is required to formalize the appointment of directors of the boards. I mean, the weakness during the state capture years was that the president was just able to appoint his own friends, families, and business associates, and that remains the vulnerability. Even today, I understand there's huge corruption going on in our state-owned enterprises, massive amounts of money disappearing down black holes and causing inefficiencies. So we've got to open up the opportunities for all competent, honest, and qualified South Africans to be able to serve on our boards. But thank you very much. We've got to work on legislation. Thank you.
Advocate Makope. I see the hand of Honorable Advocate Makope.
Thank you very much. And I was just wanted to say to Honorable Christie that as we have been engaging with the Portfolio Committee on the bill, one thing that we have realized is that the provisions, and I agree they could be improved by the honorable members on the appointment of board. The initial thinking was that it will apply to the only SOEs that will be part of the SAMSOC. But I think one of the things that we can introduce is to make these governance provisions to be applicable to all 700 state-owned enterprises. And we're accepting that as a department, and it's based on the engagements that we have had with the Portfolio Committee that really said to us, let these good provisions not only apply to SOEs that will be part of SAMSOC. So as we go forward developing the bill, there is an opportunity to change it and make sure that the governance provisions apply to all SOEs and not limited to the SOEs that are only part of some sort. And we've seen that also from the public participation process to say these are good provisions, make them applicable to all SOEs. So we've got an opportunity to legislate this process through this bill, improve it, and as indicated, it will be a major step in terms of the implementation of SOE reforms. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much, Advocate Makobe, and thank you very much to the honourable members. And I know that there's no other hands, honourable members, and at the right time, honourable members will still discuss and engage on the bill that is before this portfolio committee. And I think as we all have listened to the presentation and obvious also from the recommendations of the Auditor General, we have all agreed that there are challenges and from that emanates from the dissolved public enterprise department, and obvious the challenges from these SOEs. But also, honourable members, you have noted the oversight visit from some of these SOEs, and you have noted some of the challenges. But obvious, as the presentation have said, there is improvement from some of these SOEs. It's not the previous status where there were a lot of challenges. There is improvement, but obvious. The portfolio committee must be able to discuss and engage on the bill that is before us. And I understand there are issues and there are gaps, weaknesses that have been identified by the members of the portfolio committee. And at the right time, honourable members will discuss, and at the end we'll agree on the bill that is before the portfolio committee, and so that all these SOEs they becomes what we all expected as honourable members. But we'll always also give the department, to monitor and oversee all these SOEs, including all other departments, honourable members. But we've noted all the issues, and at the right time we'll discuss and engage on the bill that is before us, honourable members, and obvious close gaps where there are gaps in the bill itself. And if we want to change some of the clauses, we will discuss that. But obvious, importantly, is to take the bill before our public, and because public participation is part of our responsibility, honourable members. But let me thank the Deputy Minister and also Advocate Makobe, all colleagues from the Planning, Monitoring, Evaluation, and obvious from the department, and also all colleagues that have joined this meeting from the line ministries, and yourselves, honourable members. And your views and obvious your inputs from these reports, and obvious our responsibility of making sure that these SOEs, as we see these Lantica challenges from these SOEs, it's our responsibility as this committee as well, to assist and also criticize, but criticize with solutions, because we're part of this country, we're part of these issues and challenges. We can't at some point always criticize and don't give solutions. And obvious, we must make sure that we govern as well, honourable members, because when there are challenges, they always affect, the ordinary citizens, not ourselves alone, but also we must think of all these citizens and obvious that live under poverty, unemployment, and inequality, because it's not about ourselves alone, but also, give solutions to the government of this country. And I will, at the end, honourable members, thank you, all of you. And now the meeting for today is adjourned. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.